Welcome to my podcast. This is a podcast where I'll be teaching you all the systems and strategies you need in creating your visibility so you can turn your passion for coaching into a profitable business. I'm your host, Michelle Quay. I am a visibility coach, content and email marketing strategist, international speaker, and author, as well as the founder of Elevate Life Coaching. Let's just say that I know a few things about overcoming seemingly impossible obstacles in life and in business. I'm on a mission to be the champion that helps you to get to the top of your mountain, one courageous step at a time. Welcome to the show. Today, I am excited because I have my friend, Brittany Dixon, who is here to tell us about business system and strategies and being productive in your business. You don't want to have a business. And if you go visit her website, later on, I'll tell you where her website is. If you go onto her website, her tagline is you want to run a business without the burnout, which is essentially what we want to do, right? To enjoy our life together. Brittany helps entrepreneurs building business without burnout by creating minimalist business and productivity systems to do more in less time. She organizes routines, time management, and tech to better work for you. I know a lot of you are stuck and struggling with being the tech savvy coach. And that's one of the things that you are really coming to me for is that tech savviness. Michelle, how do I do this live? How do I do a live that looks like I have a whole entire team behind it? If that is you, stay on because we are going to bring on my guest so that she can tell you all the tricks and tips of how she stayed productive so that she can have a business while living in her RV. Yeah, that's me, her. Brittany!
Hello! How's it going?
I have no idea how you do everything in your life. I was looking at your website. It looks amazing, so beautiful. And you were an event planner before and now a productivity coach or business system and organization strategist. And we were just talking before the show that she and her husband and her kids are going to be on the road. You're living a dream lifestyle.
We are. It's kind of crazy how it all happened, but yeah, we're moving into an RV and hitting the road here soon.
It's crazy. That's like kind of like a dream lifestyle. A lot of my audience will want to have that freedom and time doing what they love and while having a coaching business. So I would love to hear, how did you get started?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been a crazy roller coaster, as I'm sure most entrepreneurs have been on. I actually was an accidental entrepreneur, never in a million years thought that I would do this. I worked in the event planning space for a while, and then I started my professional home organizing business as a side hustle just to kind of like do on the weekends and that sort of thing. And I actually got let go from my corporate job and decided to just jump in. So they fired me. I jumped into my business, started organizing houses for other twin moms because I've got twin girls at home. So I had a whole community of twin moms. Did that for about a year and I didn't know what I was doing running a business. So I hired a coach and she was like, you could help businesses organize their business, right? And I was like, wait, what? So dove into that. That's where I really found my passion is I was able to create that ripple effect by helping so many business owners so that they can help more people. And I found that I can just make such a big impact doing that versus the in-home stuff. So yeah, the short version is event organizer to home organizer to business organizer. But really, I just am on a mission to help people build a business without burnout because I see way too many entrepreneurs that you didn't start a business to run a business. You started a business because you're really good at something, but the other stuff that you have to do to make that happen can consume you. And I see too many people burning out. So yeah, I'm on a mission to help people get organized and work less.
I remember one of the first things that I was taught as a speaker, because I do speak at conferences and events, and there's a lot of event coordinator, event planner involved. And one of the first things that I was taught and trained is that you do not want to upset your event planner because they have a timeline that they
Yep.
want to follow. And
Yep.
that's something that you do not want to interrupt. So make sure if you give in 15 minutes to speak, you only speak for 15 minutes, not more, not less, 15 minutes.
Yep. Yeah, I was in the wedding and event space, so it was a little more hectic. And I realized the common thread through all of that is I loved the organization and logistics. I definitely did not like the wedding and event side and like working nights and weekends and all of that. But the thread through all of it was logistics and back end like organization. So it kind of came full circle when I started this. So it was pretty cool.
So before we go into like the tips and strategies, what are some of the common mistakes that people are making when it comes to designing their day and maximizing productivity?
Yeah. So honestly, I think the biggest one is boundaries, especially as entrepreneurs. We say yes a lot, like a lot, like way too much. We say yes to all these things because we think it's this great opportunity. But I see too many people saying yes to opportunities that don't necessarily fit within their goals. And then they're having to say no to other things that would help their goals more. And I think if entrepreneurs or moms or whoever in general had better boundaries about saying yes and no to things, they would be a lot less overwhelmed. I know this from experience. I spent about 2 years. I said yes to everything. I worked on the nights. I worked in weekends. I worked every single day, back to back to back to back calls. Like it gets so crazy. So I honestly think boundaries is probably one of the biggest things, which has been interesting. I started therapy last year, and I think there's a lot of common threads within going to therapy of how I've kind of figured out how to set better boundaries. So that's the biggest thing. And then the second biggest thing I would say is shiny object syndrome, bouncing from tech to tech, app to app, platform to platform. Business is built in the boring routines. And the more boring routines you can have in place, the more successful you're going to be and the less busy you're going to be.
It's so interesting because earlier I was actually on another call and then they were talking about how a lot of these successful entrepreneurs and business owners, they actually don't have a lot of big things that they're doing on a daily basis. It's a small little boring routine task like building relationship and having conversation and just going around and just commenting on people's posts. Those things that's really mundane and doesn't mean anything, doesn't look like a big thing. That's actually
I tell people all the time, I'm like, goals are great, but habits is what makes it actually happen. Because if you have this grand goal, but you don't break it down into a bite-sized day-to-day thing, it's going to be a lot harder to achieve. And that's what I saw a lot was entrepreneurs year after year had the same goals that they weren't achieving. And I'm like, you've got to build in some boring routines and habits and have consistency, or else you're just going to year after year be like chasing your tail. So I 1000% agree with that.
All right, since we're talking about breaking it down, so can you break it down on a high level of what that design our day will look like?
Yeah, for sure. So I actually use my BCO method. So BCO is actually my company name too, right? But it stands for Business Development, Client Services, and Operations. These are the 3 core areas that every single business has, regardless of what you do. I use this in how I organize things within my business. I use this for my clients, and I also use it when I'm blocking out time on my calendar. So I make sure that I have time blocked out for business development, which is going to be all things sales, networking, relationships, following up with people in my CRM, social media engagement, those types of things. So I actually have an hour built into my day every single day, and it's just on repeat on my calendar. What I see people do is they'll fill their calendar with meetings and calls and then not put admin time on their calendar and not put business development time on their calendar. And that you still have to do that. So that's where people start working too much, just because they have full calendars and you still have to do follow-ups. You still have to do operations and admin. So basically, I start to block out my time with my BCO method. So with the C and client services, I block out client days so that those are where all of my client calls are. Those are where all my meetings are for clients. Anything client related happens on those specific days. And then the O stands for operations. And that's going to be all the stuff no one wants to do, right? Your bookkeeping, any kind of like cleanup of your email, setting up systems or processes. And by putting time blocks for all of these things on my calendar on repeat, it makes me be a lot more intentional with my time and how much white space I have on my calendar. So that's really the first thing I tell people to do is go in and start to kind of map out those blocks and see what that looks like for you. And for me, I take Fridays off, right? So Friday is completely off the board. Tuesdays and Thursdays are client days. Monday is a lot of business development admin for me. And Wednesday is kind of like a up in the air. So if I have projects, I can work on those. If I have more clients, I can do that. But I think by really starting to create that ideal week and what that looks like for you, you can be more intentional with what you put in. But I think a lot of people don't have the clarity of what they want it to even look like. Mm-hmm. So then it's just this kind of like cycle that they get stuck in.
I can only imagine what your calendar looks like right now. Do you color code?
I do color code. I actually color code in the BCO method. So all things business development are green for money, because that's what you're doing. You're growing the business. All things clients for me are pink. And then all things operations are blue. So yes, it's very color coded. I also use purple for personal. So there is a whole system to it, because visually, for me, I can see if it's a very personal day, I'm not going to do a ton of business. And if it's a very business oriented day, I'm not going to have a lot of personal. And it just helps me to really visualize my day and my week.
I love color coding and I love time blocking, because that was really something that really helped me to get going and get mapped out. And I remember one of the first things I did when I started my business was I want full control of my calendar.
Yes. If you don't control your calendar, it will control you very quickly. Like very, very quickly. Like I want to take Fridays off. And what happened is I didn't actually block it. I just said that. And every Friday, didn't fail. Somebody's like, hey, can I book with you on Friday? I'm like, yeah, sure. It's fine. And like week after week, I wasn't taking Fridays off. Now I've literally had it blocked out for an entire year and a half every Friday. So I see that it has time block on it. So I am so much more intentional now to say, oh, I'm actually off on Friday. Let's do Thursday. But if I didn't have that there as visual cue, it would be really easy for me to just fill it up and then not take Fridays off. So you just have to be really, really intentional. I'm a business minimalist, like less is more. The least amount of things I can do, the better. The least amount of software and tools I'm using, that's how I roll. So yeah, I think it's just a lot of intentionality and boundaries too, which we talked about.
So what kind of calendar system do you use? Do you use like any of the fancy tech tools that's out there?
For sure. So I'm a Google Calendar girl. So that's where everything lives. And then I actually use 17 Hats for my CRM, and it has a scheduler built in that's very similar to like Acuity or Calendly. So it's actually completely integrated. So anytime someone books, it just gets popped onto my calendar. And it honestly saves me a lot of time, because I don't have to, there's not a lot of back and forth. I can just say, here's my open availability, go ahead and book. And they'll not ever really be able to book on Mondays or Fridays. It's my open calendar is only Tuesday, Wednesdays, Thursdays typically. So yeah, I'm definitely a fan of them. I think you just have to have the right boundaries in place on your calendar so that it makes sense.
Hey there, sorry to interrupt, but you've been staring at the flashing cursor on your screen for the last 2 hours. Your heart is pounding, your eyes becoming blurry, your frustration has just kicked up a notch. You feel overwhelmed, but still, you have nothing. The problem that many women coaches experience is not the fear of showing up for their business, it is the lack of idea to show up. Now, imagine you being able to write confidently, knowing that your content can be meaningful and helpful, having a plan or framework, and the clarity to the purpose of being on social media that actually lead your business to success. Ready to hop off that hamster wheel? Head over to content.attractclientthroughstorytelling.com and grab your copy of Content Planner for Women Coaches today. Now back to the show. Do you ever have one of those clients who come to you and say, you know, Brittany, I love the idea of time blocking, but they're having this resistance about saying no to their client? And especially someone who's like pretty new, someone who's new to the space, and, you know, they want to get as many clients as they want. So they have an open calendar system. What would you say to those?
It's tough. There is going to be a time period as a new business owner that you are going to have to hustle and take everything on and figure out what you like and what you don't like and what types of clients you like to work with. There is going to be that time period, right? Like you are going to have to go through that regardless. But at some point, you have to say, okay, I now know who I want to work with. I know what types of projects I like doing. I know the type of people I like working with. Now I'm going to set some better boundaries because I don't want to be burnout. So that's when you have to start those boundaries in place. And a lot of it's hard with clients, right? If you don't set them up with boundaries from the get-go, it's hard to go backwards and say, oh, here's my new schedule, right? But it all comes down to communication and just saying like, hey, I've made some changes in my business. This is what this looks like. I take client work on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays. I'm not available on Fridays. I have a 24 or 48 hour turnaround on emails. Like it's just laying that all out for them to let them know that's what that looks like. But there is going to be a time period that you're going to have to kind of go through that. Yeah, I remember I actually have some before and after shots of my calendar. Like before it was like back-to-back meetings with like no time between. And then now I have buffer time for everything. So, and this way is a lot better to work. Trust me.
I think it also makes you more productive when you have that full control of time blocking out. So today I'm going to focus on operational and tomorrow I'm going to focus on, like personal errands and stuff. It makes you become more productive because you know
100%.
that there's time frame that you need to complete it.
Yeah. And I think there's a stop with time blocking. I think a lot of people run into issues. They try to get really specific with what they're doing during that time. And for me, that's why I use the BCO method, right? So the biggest thing is switching. When you switch different types of tasks, you're killing your productivity. So if you're thinking about social media and creating content and writing a blog, and then you're like, wait, let me go do my bookkeeping. Now let me go do some client work. Like those are 3 totally different brainwaves and like thought patterns that you have to be in. And switching that is going to kill your productivity. So if you can time block and say business development, and you're in that space to say like, oh, I'm going to create some content for social media. I'm going to create some graphics. Like it's all the same type of task. So you're not task switching as much. So I think the biggest hang up people have is they try to get really specific with what they're doing in their time blocks. And it's really hard, right? If you can just say, I'm going to work on client stuff, bouncing between clients is easier than bouncing between like social media and doing your bookkeeping.
They're completely different tasks
Completely
and different energy because some of us feel like resistant to creating content. So I don't want to create content. It takes longer time.
Yes. It's completely different brainwaves. That's why I basically put everything into those 3 buckets because I'm like, if I'm working on operations, I'm going to do all the boring admin stuff, the systems. I'm going to go through and create workflows. Like it's all the same energy and it just helps to kind of block it that way.
Yeah. So we spend a lot of time talking about the business aspect, but you have twins.
I do. I have twin daughters. Yes.
How do you balance your life, your business and your life, your personal life?
So a lot of systems. So there's a lot of time blocked off for personal stuff also. That's kind of part of my days by design, right? Is that it's not just the business stuff. You want to fill in those personal things. You want to have self-care time. You want to have time for yourself in the morning for a routine. You want to have family time. Like it's a lot of putting that in the calendar and just being really intentional with it. The other piece of it is the minimalism thing has really helped. Like the less clutter I have in my home, the more effective we kind of run. And the kids have kind of started to get on that boat too, because we're about to live in an RV. So like we're going to have to get rid of some things, but it really is just being intentional. It's honestly, I'm using the same systems from a business aspect as I am in my personal life. So I use Google Calendar for both. I use my Asana project management tool for both. I'm literally just combining it all together so that I can just maintain everything at the same time. And then we have some other things, like we use the Amazon Echo for our grocery list, and we have like our weekly planner on the refrigerator. So I think it's just, again, having like those little systems in place and repeating them. I have the same planning process. I have the same grocery process. It's the same routine over and over and over. And I think when people try to do new things or try new systems constantly, that's where they get really, really overwhelmed. You just got to find something that works and like stick with it.
Yeah, it feels like I have a to-do list for my to-do list just to make sure my to-do list is functioning.
Yes, that. Right? I mean, I have a planning process in place on Fridays. Sometimes when I'm off, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to plan for next week. Or if I don't want to do it on Friday, I'll do it Thursday evening. And I literally map out my entire week
Mhm.
to be more proactive. Because I think that's the other thing. A lot of people are very reactive in their business, right? Like, oh, I have that call in 30 minutes. Like, I need to prep for that. And that's where the stress comes in because then you're bouncing between things really quickly. You're getting overwhelmed with email. Like, you've got stuff moving around constantly. So, by planning, I at least have a radar of what's happening next week. Now, granted, I will create a grand plan on Friday. Monday rolls around, something knocks the dominoes over, and I have to like shuffle things. But I'm still able to be more proactive consistently because I'm actually looking ahead versus like, oh, I have a podcast I'm going to be on. What am I talking about? Like, I have a client call after that. What are we doing? Like, that's where it gets to burnout phase because it's just too much like reactivity.
hmm So I have so many questions. I follow planners. I follow organizational YouTuber online. I can spend hours just watching them.
Yes, I love it.
And so my question is, do you use any type of analog at all, like paper, pen?
So I have my iPad with good notes. So I
Oh.
do still write on paper technically, but it's digital paper. Unless I'm doing like big picture planning, I will use like whiteboards or I'll do like those big sticky notes,
Mhm.
but it's really just to get it all out. And then it basically has to get into digital in some format, right? So if it's an appointment, it goes on my calendar. If it's a task, it goes into Asana. If it's a project, it goes into Asana. So sometimes I'll do it for like brainstorming or big picture stuff, but my day to day, I have good notes. So I have different notebooks for each client and everything's in there. All of our RV planning is Asana and good notes. So again, I just use the same systems I'm using in business in my life because
Mhm.
why have two task tools? Why have two calendars? That's where the minimalism comes in, right? It's like the less amount of tools you can have to manage everything, the easier it's going to be.
Yeah. So basically, exactly what you had described yourself as the
Yeah.
Marie Kondo business.
Yeah, it
Marie
is.
Kondo
It
for
is.
business.
And it's interesting because I started in that world, right? Like I started in the home space where I was decluttering and minimalizing and getting rid of stuff.
Yeah.
And I literally just brought those exact same methodologies over to business. And it has worked so well because I see so many entrepreneurs signing up for all the tools and then they'll try it for 5 days and then they get annoyed with it. So they switch to the next one and they switch to the next one and then they're not using anything. And so many people aren't hitting their goals because they're stuck in all of that. You just really have to pick one that works for you and makes sense for your working style and then
Mhm.
stick to it and use it consistently. Again, business is built in the boring routines. I have
Mm.
had the same planning process. I have had the same end of day routine. I have had the same project management tool for like 4 years. I have not switched. And that's why I've been able to be successful because I can actually move things forward a lot faster.
Mhm. Okay, so that's kind of wrap up a little bit. And if someone is sitting there and thinking, oh my gosh, Brittany, this is amazing. I do want to have a calendar. I do want to minimize all the things I'm doing on an everyday basis and having these routines. What would be their first step?
Yeah. So the first step in my process is really to like purge and detox, right? Like, how can we get rid of some of that clutter? How can we delete emails? How can we get off of lists that are not serving us anymore? How can we clean out our digital files? That's where people get stuck. It's just constantly coming in. So I think it's really setting a set of time every single day and cleaning out your inbox, cleaning out your screenshots in your phone, cleaning out a lot of this clutter in business in your life, right? Because I think once you start to see that momentum, you're like, oh, this feels really good. I want to set up some more systems. I want to create this calendar. I want to create this next thing. And I think it just gives you that momentum because I honestly think digital clutter is more harmful than physical clutter because it just adds up so quickly. So I would just say purge and detox, right? Go through your
Mhm.
expenses, see what you can get rid of, go through software, see what you can get rid of, clear out the digital clutter, do a time audit, see where your time is really going and just really see the big picture. Then you can start to kind of make a plan and move forward.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Love everything that you share. And I think one of the
Yeah.
tips that I started to do is I create a folder in my email, in my inbox that has all the unsubscribe. word in them.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. You're like, I need to unsubscribe from this. Go in there.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are a lot of like, so don't unsubscribe me. So everybody who's watching and listening, don't unsubscribe me.
Yeah.
I'm going to share with you my tips on all the letters, all the things that you don't want. So you create these unsubscribe inbox, and all your unsubscribe, anything that contain unsubscribe will just sit in that folder. And that's like your least priority, right? So you can go through your important day, and then at the end of the day, go to that inbox.
Yeah, for sure. It is. It's the digital clutter is real. It is real. You've got emails and files, and it just adds up so quickly.
Yeah. What is your next step in Brittany's world?
Yeah. So we actually have some fun retreats coming. We're going to be doing productivity in paradise with me traveling the country. We're going to kind of pick like beachy spots and host retreats. So I'm super excited about that once we kind of get rolling. But honestly, for me, we just have our accountability membership and my VIP days. So I'm just looking to help as many entrepreneurs as I can, and then add some fun in and get back to my event planning roots and plan some of my own events.
I love it. Hopefully you'll be coming to PCH. We have a very sunny side, California. I would love to see you there. I'll come to your retreat.
I know. We're traveling to all these cities. I'm going to have to like post like, hey, we're here. Who do I know here? Let's all get up and like get together for coffee or something.
Yes. Hey, I'm going to be there in a couple of months. Let's plan something together.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm so excited.
Where can we find you?
Yeah. So bcohq.co is our website. You can really find everything over there. That's kind of the easiest place. It's our hub. And then we hang out at Instagram. It's brittanyandco.consulting over there. If you want to follow the RV adventure, it's actually called the Dixon Detour. So we've got our own social media for all of that as well. Yeah.
That is so cool. I'm definitely going to go find you and follow you. And I know that you also have a podcast. Tell us about the podcast.
Yeah. So it's actually on hold right now, but there's like 130 episodes that you can go binge. The productivitypodcast.co. So yeah, we do a lot of the back-end system stuff. We talk about productivity. I talk about a lot of my personal journey through business. We bring on guests. So all kinds of goodness over there.
I love it. I always find those productivity podcasts and also YouTube very addicting. I can sit down and dream about their life all the time.
I love it. I love it. Awesome.
Any last word of advice for our audience?
Yeah, I will just say sometimes when people hear words productivity and systems, they get really overwhelmed. And the biggest thing to remember is you just have to go one step at a time. It did not get like this overnight. So it's not going to be fixed overnight. But if you can just start taking some small steps to detox and purge and set up some systems, and you just got to keep that momentum going, right? So don't try to change everything overnight. This did not happen overnight, but little baby steps.
Love it. Baby step. Yeah. It's all about baby step. Having a business is like running a marathon, right? It's not a sprint. You take your time, one step at a time.
Enjoy the process. Enjoy the process.
Enjoy the view.
Yes.
Thank you so much
for having me. This has been great. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much. This is very valuable for my audience because I know a lot of them wearing multiple hats and they're trying to figure things out and get things going. And that frustration is just real. So I really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hey, beautiful. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast and found value from this episode, I would love for you to hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform and leave me a rating and review. One thing I was struggling in my early years in business was finding the right people to connect with. It feels like I was on this entrepreneur journey on my own. And sometimes we all just need friends who can share our dreams and hopes. Someone who can relate to what we're going through as we grow our business together. If you are a woman coach who is ready to grow your coaching business and looking for strategies to get seen, get heard, and get hired, I want to invite you to come and find me in our community on Facebook at Get Clients with Storytelling. This is a community of women coaches who want to grow a coaching business by creating engaging, visible, and authentic content with storytelling for their business to get more leads and attract more clients. I will see you at our next tea party.